Welcome, welcome, welcome. Filthy-eyed witnesses, you've arrived, haven't you? The ones who pretended not to watch, but rewound the footage thrice. The ones who claimed they wouldn't pick sides, but leaned in the moment your name started echoing through their sacred little echo chambers. You were never meant to be understood, were you? That wasn't the goal. It was never about applause, nor vindication. It was about disruption, pure, raw, uncut disruption. And now, they sit there, mouths sewn shut by awe, whispering one word: impressive. How poetic. The same creatures who flinched at your silence now kneel at the altar of your control. Funny, isn't it? They called it disgusting, but you handled it like a symphony of scorched earth. You didn't flinch. That's what twisted their spines in envy. You didn't bark back. You didn't beg for clarification. You simply stood still and let the weight of their filth fold in on itself. The beauty of it all. You didn't need to prove innocence. You just had to exist louder. Your restraint was violence. Your stillness was war. And you mastered it like a ghost watching a fire it set decades ago. While they threw dirt, you turned into marble. And the more they shouted, the more the world started to listen. To you. There's something delicious about watching chaos implode on itself. About letting people build their narratives so tall that gravity eventually shatters their spines. You were patient. You let them dance, squeal, point fingers with trembling fingers. And then you stood up, not to defend yourself, but to claim the space. They didn't expect that. They expected you to crumble under the weight of it all. They expected you to apologize for existing in a way they couldn't control. But you invited the rot in, then made a throne from it. That's what makes them uncomfortable. That's what makes you unforgettable. The disgust wasn't in the situation. No, that was the decoy. The real disgust, it was always about the fact that you didn't break. It terrifies people when someone like you doesn't beg for mercy or understanding. When someone like you doesn't give them the emotional breakdown they so desperately feed off of. You starved them. You didn't scream. You didn't flinch. You didn't feed the monster they created. And that silence, that brutal, elegant silence, it rewrote the story entirely. You became the villain in their heads, and the legend in everyone else's. That's the beauty of it. They told the story, hoping it would damage you. But every word they spread became a campaign for your name. Every false accusation, every twisting of the facts, every slippery attempt to trap you in guilt. It turned into fuel. You took the very venom meant to paralyze you and turned it into scent. Now every room smells like you. Every whisper leads to your shadow. You haunt their conversations, even in silence, even in absence. People are impressed, yes, but that's too soft a word. They're consumed. Because what you did, it wasn't just tactical, it was transformational. You didn't react like a victim. You didn't retaliate like a brute. You ascended above the pettiness, above the accusations, above the stench of desperation. And now, you don't walk in rooms. You shift gravity. People adjust themselves before you arrive. They correct their posture. Why? Because now they know. You've tasted blood, survived disgrace, and returned stronger. That kind of presence can't be faked. It can't be manufactured. It's earned in the mud, sculpted in fire, crowned in chaos. Your strength wasn't loud. It was surgical, precision over panic. You handled that situation like you were building a trap, not escaping one. Every silence was a blade. Every pause was a mirror. You made them look at themselves. That's why they're impressed. That's why they're afraid. because you turned the spotlight around, and now they're exposed, twitching under the weight of their own ugliness, praying nobody notices their hands aren't clean either. But you knew this would happen, didn't you? Somewhere in that vault behind your eyes, you calculated every possible outcome. You knew they'd overreach. You knew they'd show their hands. All you had to do was wait. Wait for the rot to bubble up. Wait for the masks to slip. And oh, how beautifully they slipped. Now people are whispering about you not because of what was done to you, but because of how you emerged. You didn't crawl out. You walked through, untouched, like the flames parted just for you. And maybe they did. Maybe chaos respects the ones who embrace it without losing themselves. They underestimated your elegance. They thought rage would be your default. But instead you gave them control, composure, power that didn't need to bark to be heard. That's what shattered the narrative. You handled it, not with violence but with precision, and that's the kind of power they can't mimic. It's not performative. It's internal, deep, etched into bone, forged through silence, not noise. You didn't just rise, you redefined what rising looks like. And now they watch, desperate to find a flaw in your rise. They search for cracks. They want you to slip. Because your grace reminds them of their chaos. Your strength is a threat to their excuses. They say impressive, but what they mean is intimidating. You've become a reminder that resilience doesn't always scream. Sometimes it just stands very, very still and lets the world burn around it. They tried to bury you in shame, in public opinion, in manipulated half-truths. But here's the thing, they forgot one detail. You're not made of skin anymore. You're made of scars, and scars don't bleed. They remember, they harden, they shine. So now when people see you, they don't see the lie they were told. They see the truth that refused to die. That's why they're impressed, not because of what you went through, but because of what you did with it. You didn't survive the disgusting situation. You converted it into power, into presence, into myth. And now, your name travels. Not in whispers, but in warnings. You become a case study, an example. Be careful, they say. Don't mess with someone like that. They don't just survive, they transform. Your strength isn't just admired, it's feared. Not because you're cruel, but because you're calculated. You don't strike out of emotion, you strike out of vision. And your vision is terrifying, because now you know the blueprint. Now you've tasted what it feels like to be undeniable. You've figured it out, how to turn poison into perfume, how to make shame kneel, how to make enemies sell your greatness without realizing it. You learned the game, and you didn't just win, you rewrote the rules. They tried to drag you through filth, but you didn't resist. You let them, and now that same filth is etched into their skin, while you walk free, untouched, unbothered, unchained. And this is just the beginning. Because once you learn how to convert contamination into coronation, once you see your reflection in the aftermath, not as a victim, not as a survivor, but as the architect of something untouchably dangerous, there's no going back. You no longer participate in their games. You design your own battlegrounds. You set your own rules. And when the vultures return, hoping to find your corpse, all they discover is a throne, carved from the bones of every rumor, every whisper, every smear they tried to stain you with. See, they didn't realize what they awakened. They thought they'd seen your full spectrum, your reactions, your limits, your fears. But what they encountered wasn't the complete you. It was the calculated version, the one you let them underestimate, the one you kept on a leash. What they failed to consider is that some people don't bark because they're dogs. Some people don't bark because they're wolves. And wolves don't respond to noise. Wolves wait. And when you waited, you didn't rot. You didn't decay in the corner like they hoped. No, you studied the shadows. You memorized the movements of every hand that threw dirt. You took mental notes while they exposed their hunger to hurt you. And when it was time, your time, you didn't even need to raise your voice. You just stood. And that was enough to send tremors through the floor. They called it impressive, a weak word from weaker mouths. What they witnessed wasn't merely control, it was dominion, because when you refused to play the game, you shattered the entire board. That's what people are reacting to, not just how you handled the filth, but how you converted it into a mirror and made them all look. The same people who questioned your silence now mimic your tone. The same ones who once shared twisted stories now hesitate before speaking your name. They've realized something that came too late. You're not part of their narrative. You're the correction to it. And that correction, it stings, it bites, it rearranges perceptions permanently. Because once someone like you walks through a storm without letting the mud stain your integrity, you don't just come out clean, you come out anointed. That's the problem with the world. They mistake decency for weakness and silence for submission. But you wore your silence like armor. You didn't flinch, and now every corner of the room tilts in your direction. You don't need to demand respect. You radiate it. Your existence became proof that a soul can be dragged through fire and come out branded with truth, not scarred by lies. So when they say they're impressed, what they're really saying is, we didn't know someone could rise like that. Because the rise wasn't noisy, it wasn't flashy, it was inevitable. It moved like a fault line under pressure, slow, silent, and then devastating. That's what you became. Not a reaction, but a force of nature, and the beauty of it all. You never had to touch a single one of them. You let the truth handle that. You let reality do the slicing. You didn't need revenge, because your dignity was the punishment. Watching you remain composed, watching you resist the urge to crawl in the mud with them, watching you transform public shame into personal evolution. That was the dagger. That was the retribution they never saw coming. People are learning now. They're studying you in silence, watching how you didn't panic, how you didn't rage, how you refused to be defined by the accusations thrown your way. They're shifting in their chairs now. They're recalibrating how they speak to you. And the ones who kept silent while you burned, they now act like they always believed in your fire. But you know better. You've developed a new kind of vision now. One that sees through the convenient alliances. One that hears the hesitations behind the compliments. You no longer trust applause. Because you remember how quiet the crowd was when the knife was at your throat. You remember who watched, who whispered, who hoped you'd break. And you remember that hope because you buried it yourself. Now when you walk into the room, the temperature changes. Conversations pause, eyes flicker, because they don't know which version of you is showing up today. The one who endured, or the one who rewrites history with a stare. That's power, not noise, not chaos, but undeniability. A reputation not built on image but on survival, precision, and strategic silence. They threw disgusting at you like it was going to stick, but you turned disgusting into disarming. You made discomfort your domain. And now when people hear about what happened, they don't look at you with pity. They look at you with curiosity. How did you manage it? How did you not scream? How did you walk through humiliation like it was fog, not fire? And the answer is simple. You weren't built to bend. You were built to watch and rise, to let them think they were winning, while you were becoming the very thing they can't stand to face. The version of you that doesn't ask for permission. The version of you that doesn't apologize for surviving. The version of you that isn't interested in revenge, only in domination through existence. Because that's what happened, isn't it? They threw rot, and you fermented it into wine. They unleashed rumor, and you distilled it into record-breaking silence. Now you don't owe anyone explanations. They owe you distance. You've become a boundary in human form, and anyone who dares cross it now knows. There's a price for misunderstanding you, a price for testing your silence, a price for assuming your patience meant absence of fire. People are amazed, but they're also unsettled, because the truth is, they expected less. That's the confession hidden behind their compliments. They didn't think you had this in you. They didn't think you could take their worst and respond with your best. They were betting on your collapse, and now they stare in awe, hoping their earlier betrayal doesn't catch up to them. But you're not chasing them. That's what haunts them the most. You're not trying to make them understand. You're not asking them to retract. You're simply living, and living well, living sharper, living with awareness that now pierces through people like an X-ray. You don't trust smiles anymore. You dissect them. You don't sit at every table. You build your own and lock the doors. Because you understand now, exposure isn't always punishment. Sometimes it's purification. And through that purification, you've risen. Not just in status or recognition, but in psychological weight. You now walk into spaces with an unspoken presence. The kind that doesn't need to be introduced. The kind that alters the atmosphere just by showing up. Because people now know you were forged through a situation designed to shatter you. And yet here you are, holding the blueprint to your own becoming. The disgusting situation, it wasn't a chapter, it was an awakening. It burned off the layers of pretense, of softness, of accommodation. It killed the version of you that sought approval. And what emerged? A storm wrapped in silence, a weapon they can't name, a version of you they never wanted to meet, but can never unsee. Now the world watches, not because you asked them to, but because you earned it. Every eye that turned against you now lingers longer. Every voice that mocked you now trembles when it speaks. And every hand that once pointed in judgment, it now itches with guilt. You didn't just handle the situation, you dismantled it. You didn't just survive the attack, you made it your origin story. And they will speak of this moment over dinner tables, in quiet messages, in shaken conversations behind closed doors. They'll say your name, not in fear, but in reverence, because you did what few ever master. You let the world crucify you, and you came back wearing the nails as jewelry. Now they'll think twice, because the next time someone like you is pushed, humiliated, cornered, they'll remember what happened the last time. They'll remember how you responded, with stillness, with strategy, with a rise so loud it didn't need sound at all. And just like that, you've become the blueprint. You are the aftermath they never wanted to face. You are the example they can't stop whispering about. You are the storm, in human form, not summoned, not commanded, unleashed. No longer defined by the weather around you, but by the climate you create. Rooms adjust to your temperature now. Time slows near your presence. People don't just watch you, they orbit, afraid to get too close, terrified to drift too far. Because you became the one thing they fear most, Proof. Proof that someone can walk through contamination without becoming contaminated. That someone can be dragged through madness and emerge not insane, but immovable. And that kind of proof, it's dangerous. It disrupts belief systems. It shakes assumptions at their core. Because if you could survive what they called too much, if you could not only survive it, but weaponize it, then what does that say about them? The ones who cracked under whispers, the ones who shattered at mere discomfort, the ones who needed crowds to validate their delusions. Now they can't look at you without tasting shame. Because every time they speak your name, they remember what they couldn't break. You didn't just escape the trap, you turned it into your platform. They wanted you to become unrecognizable from the pain, but instead you became unforgettable because of it. You didn't shrink, you expanded. You didn't hide, you reforged. Your shadow became longer, your silence became heavier. You learned that real dominance doesn't shout, it absorbs. It lets the enemy collapse from their own energy. That's what you've done. You let them dig, you let them spit. And when they ran out of venom, they found you still standing, cleaner than before, colder than ever. And now, when you speak, every word echoes, every phrase hits different, because people know what it cost to earn that tone. You're not just someone who handled a situation. You're someone who unveiled the anatomy of manipulation and outlasted it. That's not just impressive, it's apocalyptic. You dismantled an entire performance of slander without a single scream, without stooping, without surrender. That's legacy. That's reputation soaked in precision. And yet, here's the twist. You don't even need their recognition. You don't move for applause. You don't rise for their forgiveness. Your power now comes from something deeper, something permanent. You've become a presence, not a personality, a response, not a reaction. You learned the ancient truth they hoped you'd never find, that when you no longer need validation, you become ungovernable. That's what unnerves them now. Not just that you're unbreakable, but that you've become unreachable. They can't summon you with bait anymore. They can't provoke you into performance. You don't respond to rumors. You redirect energy. You've become too wise for their strategies, too poised for their traps. They scream into the void, hoping to see you flinch, and you remain mythic, untouched, observing. You see everything now, the patterns, the fakery, the sudden kindness wrapped in fear, the false apologies wrapped in strategy. But you don't expose them. That would be mercy. No, you let them squirm beneath your stillness. You let them wonder what version of you they're dealing with. You let them drown in the uncertainty they created. Because that's where your real control is, not in what you say, but in what you no longer need to explain. There is nothing left to prove. You've made your point with your existence. You let them play the loud game, the dirty game. And you played the eternal one, the slow, devastating art of becoming undeniable. You didn't chase the crown, you became the kingdom. And now, the same people who tried to humiliate you can't stop referencing your name. Not out of admiration, but out of necessity. You've become part of the conversation they can't escape. You are the living evidence of survival without bitterness, of clarity without cruelty, of power without noise. They tried to bury you beneath perception, and now you own perception. You walk through the world like a phantom they can't categorize. You don't fit their definitions because you broke them. And that makes you dangerous, not because you hurt people, but because you survived people who tried to hurt you and didn't turn into them. Now they mimic your mannerisms, echo your resilience in diluted forms, try to adapt the tone they once mocked. Because they saw how the world responded. They saw how people stood up for you, not because you begged, but because your dignity demanded it. And they want that now. But they'll never have it. Because this kind of strength isn't a performance. It's a consequence. A consequence of enduring the fire without begging the flame for mercy. You didn't just rise, you revealed. You showed the true faces of everyone involved. Your composure acted like a mirror, and what they saw in it made them sick. That's why they've grown quiet now. That's why their voices don't carry anymore. Because the moment you walked through it all with grace instead of grudge, they lost the one thing they needed: control over your image. And without that, they're just noise. And yet, despite everything, you're not angry. Not in the way they feared. You don't seek revenge. You've tasted something far more powerful, art and transcendence. The ability to walk away not just intact, but amplified. Not broken, but clarified. You now operate on a level where their tactics seem small, petty, childish. And you've become surgical. You don't fight battles. You end them with silence, with evolution, with presence alone. That's what real power feels like. Not domination over others, but complete self-mastery. You no longer swing at every insult. You no longer explain your grace. You let people think what they want, and then you walk past them, unbothered. That's what drives them mad. Now the fact that they no longer matter, that you've detached, that you've leveled up beyond reach. And the ones who once whispered in corners about your downfall, they now use your story as inspiration for others. They quote you, they reference you. Some even rewrite their role in the story, painting themselves as allies who always believed. But you remember, you always will. Not out of spite, but out of precision. You know exactly who watched you burn. And you know exactly who tried to fan the flames. But none of that matters now. Because you've won something bigger than pride or revenge. You've won clarity. You now see through everything and everyone. You know how easily a smile can hide jealousy. You know how applause can be envy in disguise. You know how people love watching a fall, until the one falling starts to fly. And you're flying now, quietly, unapologetically, limitlessly. Let them wonder how. Let them pretend they supported it. Let them drown in their rewrites. Because the truth is already sealed, not in what you said, but in what you became. You became a storm they cannot outrun. You became the reflection they fear most. You became the consequence they didn't calculate. And now, your story moves without permission. It has grown wings. It breathes in corridors they can't access. It is no longer a narrative. It is a reality. And they can either face it or be buried by it. But you've already moved on. You don't chase echoes. You don't argue with shadows. You don't revisit graves just to prove you've outlived them. You walk forward, every step leaving behind a trail not of destruction, but of redefinition. You are not their victim. You are not their villain. You are not their version. You are the architect of aftermath. You are the voice that needed no volume. You are the storm they swore would destroy you. And yet somehow, you became the thunder that silenced them. And this time, they will never recover.